Ibarra was not mistaken. It was indeed Padre Damaso seated in the Victoria, making his way toward the house that Ibarra had just vacated. As Maria Clara and Aunt Isabel stood poised to enter their intricately designed silver carriage, Damaso approached them with a look of distraction in his eyes. "Where are you going?" he inquired, his voice slightly gruff as he lightly stroked Maria's cheek, a gesture that was both familiar and patronizing. "We're going to the convent to get my things," Maria replied, her tone airy, but with an underlying hint of annoyance at the friar's presumption. "Aha, aha, we'll see who's stronger, we'll see," muttered Damaso to himself, seemingly more interested in his thoughts than in either of the women. With his head bowed and his movements slow, he turned away toward the staircase, leaving Maria and Aunt Isabel momentarily speechless. "What do you think that was about?" Aunt Isabel finally asked, shaking her head in disbelief. "Perhaps he's preparing a sermon and lost his train of thought," Maria shrugged, dismissing the encounter as they climbed into the carriage. "Get in, Maria, or we'll be late," Aunt Isabel urged, still contemplating the strange demeanor of the friar. Meanwhile, Padre Damaso arrived at the home of Capitan Tiago, looking grave. He did not even extend his hand for a greeting as was customary, and Tiago found himself feeling apprehensive as he struggled to kneel and kiss the friar's hand. "Santiago," Damaso began, "I have an important matter to discuss with you. Let's go into your office." His tone brooked no argument, and Tiago, feeling an uneasiness settle over him, obeyed. As they entered the office, Damaso closed the door behind them, creating an air of secrecy that only heightened Tiago's anxiety. Once inside, Tiago fidgeted, unsure of what the friar could want, the weight of possible consequences hanging heavy in the air. While they conferred behind closed doors, let us shift our focus to Fray Sibyla, the astute Dominican who had not been seen at the rectory for some time. After finishing his mass, he made his way to the convent situated near the gate of Isabel II, oblivious to both the rich scent of chocolate from the kitchen and the sounds of coins clinking from the treasury. He passed through several corridors until he reached the office of an aged priest. "Come in," a weak voice beckoned when he knocked softly. "May God restore health to your reverence." Fray Sibyla greeted the frail man slumped in a large armchair, his face pale and weary. "Ah, they suggest an operation. At my age. This country, oh, this terrible country. Take warning from my struggles, Hernando." The elder priest's voice bore the weight of suffering. "What has your reverence decided to do?" Sibyla asked gently, concern etched on his face. "Die," the old man replied sharply. "What else can I do? The suffering is too great, but I've made many suffer myself. I feel as if I am merely paying my debt. And you, what brings you here?" "I've come to discuss the matter you entrusted to me," Fray Sibyla said, his demeanor shifting as he delved into the heart of the issue. "Ah, what of it?" the old priest asked. "Pish," Sibyla responded distastefully, turning his face away. "They've been telling us fairy tales. Young Ibarra is more discerning than first thought. He's not foolish, but he seems to be a decent lad." "You believe so?" The old man's eyes gleamed with a hint of skepticism. "Hostilities began last night," Sibyla explained, detailing the encounter between Ibarra and Padre Damaso, his voice measured. "Besides, Ibarra plans to marry Capitan Tiago's daughter, who has been educated in our sisterhood's esteemed college. He's wealthy, and likely doesn't want to make enemies that could jeopardize his happiness." The aged priest nodded slowly, understanding dawning on him. "Yes, exactly. With a wife like that and such a wealthy father-in-law, we could secure him body and soul. But if not, it could work in our favor should he declare himself an enemy." Fray Sibyla raised an eyebrow, surprised by the ferocity in the old man's voice. "For the good of our holy order, of course," the old priest amended, breathing heavily. "Open attacks are preferable to the deceptive flattery of friends, which only serves to lull us into complacency." "Does your reverence think," Sibyla began, But the old man interjected, "Keep this in mind. Our power will last only as long as the people continue to believe in it. If they attack us, the government may perceive us as an obstacle to liberty and ensure our preservation." "What if the government listens to the people instead?" Sibyla asked, unease creeping into his voice. "It will not listen," the old man insisted, wheezing slightly. "But if greed should arise among them, if someone bold and daring emerged?" Sibyla pressed, the thought worrisome. "Then woe unto that one," the elder priest replied ominously. They both fell silent for a moment, contemplating the gravity of their circumstances. Finally, the old man spoke again. "We need those external attacks to keep us sharp. They remind us of our flaws. If we lull ourselves into complacency through undue praise, we become the subject of ridicule. And when that happens, we will fall as we did in Europe." After discussing peripheral topics, Fray Sibyla took his leave, his mind swirling with thoughts of impending trials. Back with Capitan Tiago, the interview reached a tense conclusion. "So now you are warned," Padre Damaso said sharply upon exiting the office. "We could have avoided all of this if you had consulted me initially. Do not play any more foolish games and remember to trust your protector." With that, Damaso left, leaving Tiago to pace anxiously. The stress wore on Tiago as he walked up and down the sala, deep in thought. Suddenly, clarity struck him like a bolt of lightning. He rushed to the oratory and extinguished the candles and lamp that had been lit for Ibarra's protection, muttering, "The way is long, and there's yet time."